try hard to keep you all awake after lunch. So let's see. Thanks to technology.
Annalena, nur einmal auf Show klicken und dann geht mit rechts und links mit dem Key. Du musst nur einmal unten rechts auf Show klicken. Nochmal in die Ecke unten, du hast gerade meinen Spaces gemacht. Ja.
If you press Command Shift and F, it's full screen.
Und dann einfach rechts und links benutzen.
So that works. All right. We are at the dawn of the digital age. Neil Postman, a distinguished media theorist, once said about the invention of the printing press that when the printing press was invented in Europe, we didn't have Europe plus books. We had a whole new Europe. And I think the same can be said about digital technology. It's a similar transformational change. It's not, the move from analog to digital technology is not incremental, it's transformational. The mass media that our parents' generation grew up with were one-way streets. There was information that was transferred and broadcasted to the passive audience. Today, digital resources are not only accessible anytime and anywhere, they're also interactive and social. So it's more like a bustling square. As of yet, however, this shift from analog to digital has hardly had any impact in higher education. 96% of students use the internet on a regular basis, and 59% of them use it in educational settings. However, universities are moving at a snail's pace when it comes to adopting technology. There, we still work with analog media, whereas in our everyday life, we work with digital media. There, we're tethered to a desk and a chair, whereas in our everyday life, we're increasingly mobile. We learn in isolation, whereas in our everyday life, we're often or increasingly connected. Well, let's see where we are here, because it's kind of shame to miss out on beautiful presentation. No, should we go back? I'm not sure. Well, where? Yeah. Okay. It's very unfortunate indeed, I have to say. Well, okay, I mean, you have to figure this one out. I don't know. I don't know where it all is. But, okay, what I want to say is that, yeah, in education, we're often consumers of generic content, whereas in our private lives, we're personalizing our news feeds, and we're often creators of content. And if you think of your iPod playlist, it's hardly like anyone else's iPod playlist in this room. In education, the system is often closed, whereas the networks that we live our private lives in are open and connected. So this tension between the everyday and the educational setting cannot remain without tangible consequences for the actual practice of teaching. The permanent and ubiquitous availability of sheer infinite amount of digital learning material will have to have an impact in education. Carl Trigg summarized this neatly by saying that teaching is no longer necessary for learning to occur. So do we still need teachers? I'd answer that question with a resounding yes, we do. Because we do live in a complex and messy world, and education is not just about the acquisition of information, it's about building knowledge, understanding context, judging whether a source is reliable, whether a certain statistic is valid. All this requires experience. And we can say that we will still need teachers as long as children are less experienced than adults. Yet, the educational paradigm has to change. We have to acknowledge that there are different learning styles. It's not fair of us to ask every student to climb the same tree. The best time to learn for a student is when he or she wants to learn, not when a teacher wants to teach. So this idea of student-centered learning and personal interaction has been proclaimed since the 70s. So some of you may think, well, this is not new, we've heard about all this. But what I would like to argue is that with technology, we can make it a reality. Technology can function as a humanizing factor in education. With the growth in access and the decline in budgets over recent decades, the Mass University has become the norm. A student was recently quoted in the Chronicle as saying, if you want to encounter real distance education, sit in the back of a 500-seat lecture hall. So if we automate the trivial and the repetitive, and if we facilitate the flow of information within educational communities, leverage educational analytics and other emerging technologies, then I do believe that we can truly transform the way education is being conducted. Teachers will find new roles. It's not about replacing teachers by broadband, Sam Pitroda says, advisor to the Indian Prime Minister, but about transforming teachers by broadband. Technology allows us to end the abuse of professors and teachers as recitation machines and allow them to engage with what they're actually qualified to do, and that is discuss with students and engage in personal interaction. We have to move from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. And when students collaboratively engage with real-world problem solving, then maybe the meddler in the middle would be a good analogy. The Khan Academy does some really interesting work in the context of American K-12 education. The concept is called flipping the classroom. Students acquire information at home and then come to class to do what used to be called homework. They focus on collaborative, inquiry-based activities, and I think we can do the same in higher education, where we move from a lecture to a blend of what will be a seminar or a lab. This will bring about a new culture of learning. We have to put self-directed inquiry, peer-to-peer education, and intensive discussion at the heart of the learning process. We have to move from broadcast learning to social learning. We have to empower students to become their own teachers and peer-to-peer mentors so they can collaboratively engage in knowledge construction. You probably have made this experience that there is this one student in a class of yours who really knows his stuff. And you probably could have learned as much from him or her as you did from your professor. So how do we overcome this idea of the one-way transmission of information by lecture? Well, we believe that at iversity that a virtual meta-campus will help us overcome the anonymity of the Mass University. Asynchronous communication in digital networks will function as the transmission belt of the knowledge society. We can stretch seminar-style dialogue from an hour a week to 24/7. And digital learning environments will soon become as vital to functioning of the university as the campus itself. We want to create a global academic network. Universities will increasingly be distributed, more fluid, untethered, and dispersed. Tightly knit intellectual communities don't have to be tied to any one place anymore. TEDx is a good example of this. There's a global brand, and people who are very loosely associated but recognize each other by a passion for ideas worth spreading. The logistics of true collaboration will have to be a cornerstone of such a platform. And I'd actually like to give you an example of what this may look like. This is a feature that we have on iversity, which is the platform we're building right now. Here you see a reading list, actually a group that I created especially for this conference. So if we take a look at Macbeth, for example, there's the annotate feature that allows you to engage in social reading. Students can open a PDF document, highlight and annotate texts, and these annotations and what they highlighted is visible to others. The same works in the hard sciences. So if two students take a look at a paper together, they can see, okay, what is it that's really relevant in this diagram, and what does it actually mean? The same can be applied to more lofty subjects, such as The Academy by Raphael, that you can use this tool to identify figures in an image, explain metaphors, and discuss what the relevance of a certain gesture is. Students and professors will use such networks to share information about what they're reading, whom they're meeting, where they're going, as well as knowledge, so what they think or what they value. Personal, institutional, topic-specific or discipline-specific news feeds will allow you to granularly configure what kind of academic knowledge you want to obtain. The global directory of people, courses, research projects, and study groups allows you to form connections beyond your campus. You can pitch academic, civic, entrepreneurial, or extracurricular projects that can be pitched, can be for review to the community, for feedback, or to request collaboration, locally as well as globally. Physical proximity then is no longer a prerequisite for intellectual proximity. We believe that Humboldt's vision of a Gemeinschaft of von Forschenden und Lehrenden, so a community of researchers and teachers, may in fact stand a better chance of becoming reality online than it ever did in real life. This is what the real data on iversity looks like right now. It's a visualization of how specific institutions are connected over with tags that relate to specific material on the platform, and it shows you how the academic community does already sort of interconnect on such a platform, and we'd now like to take this global. Thank you.